video is sponsored, but don't worry, I won't sell you t-shirts or advertise VPNs, it's kind of collaboration. One of my viewers asked me to knit a Christmas stocking. I downloaded the magazine and I was struggling a lot with understanding it, so she managed to send me detailed instructions on how to knit the stocking. So thank you Galaxy Tree, this video is dedicated to you. This is the first stocking I made. My phone rang, then I picked the wrong pushers, that's why the heel looks so strange. I won't throw it away, I have an idea, but I will show you in another video. The third sock I made looks perfect. This is how the heel should look like. It will be a long video, so take your phone to the knitting machine and let's knit the sock together. I bought these two big bobbins of acrylic yarn to make the sock. First let's prepare the yarn. I will wind two cakes from the red yarn and one from the white yarn. To thread the machine, I will place the big bobbins on the floor and the small cakes into the cups. Take all three ends of the red yarn, thread them into the double eye bodkin 2 and thread the machine as usual. All three strands must go in one eyelet. Then thread both white strands into the second eyelet. It should look like this. I will use 3 strands to knit only the rib. Now you can see the difference between using 2 and 3 strands. The rib is much more defined. Make sure the racking handle is in its lowest position. Use the orange ruler and raise 80 needles on the front bed of the machine. Place the edge springs on the last needles and make sure the latches are closed. Now raise 80 needles on the back bed. You have to observe the needle rule. Place the edge springs on the last needles. Now you can see them up close. On the front bed, leave the first 2 needles in working position, then put every third needle out of working position. On the back bed, put the first needle at left out of working position. Move the edge spring on the last working needle, then put every third needle out of working position. It should look like in the diagram. Place one needle to the right of the edge spring, place it over it and make sure the latch is closed. You can see the needles up close. Rotate the racking handle 1 full turn anti-clockwise. Set the front lock to N and the stitch size to 3. Set the back lock the same way. Insert the orange strippers and take the yarn. I will use the 3 strands of red yarn for the rib, so I will take red as my first color. Now knit 1 row. It should look like this. Set both locks to CX and increase the stitch size to 4. Rotate the racking handle one full turn clockwise. Now knit 2 rows. It should look like this. Set both locks to N and increase the stitch size to 5. Knit 1 row to finish the cast on. Clear the row counter and knit 42 rows without changing the settings to make the rip. Clear the row counter. Now set both locks to CX. Raise the needles on the front bed. You must have 80 needles in working position. Raise so 80 needles on the back bed or leave them like that to make an interesting pattern. If you raise sew needles on both sides of the machine, the sock will look like this. You can also use the deco device with this arrangement. If you raise the needles only on the front bed, you will have this cool pattern. Raise pushers and the row needles in working position on the front bed. Now knit 2 rows. It should look like this. Clear the row counter and set the front lock to BX. Set the stitch size to 4 1/4 and press the left arrow key. Set the back lock to N. The stitch size must be 4. Remove one of the cakes so you will have 2 strands of red yarn into the eyelet. Now take the second color and knit 20 rows. In the first 2 rows the machine will knit only on the back bed, then in the second 2 rows the machine will knit on both beds. Don't clear the row counter. Now you have to change the yarn. Don't forget that we will use only 2 strands of red yarn. Knit 20 rows with the red yarn. Don't clear the row counter. Change the yarn again and knit 20 more rows. You have to change the color after every 20th row and you have to knit a total of 300 rows. Clear the row counter. Use the orange ruler and raise all needles on the back bed of the machine if you haven't raised them in the previous step. You must have a total of 80 needles in working position on the back bed of the machine. Now knit 4 rows without changing the settings. Skip this step if you raise the needles before knitting the 300 rows. You won't make a mistake even if you knit these 4 rows with the needles raised from the beginning. It should look like this. Clear the row counter, set the front lock to BX and the stitch size to 4, press the 0 key to disengage the arrow key. Set the back lock to BX and the stitch size to 4. Cut the red yarn and insert the end into the slot on the right side of the machine. Then move the lock to the right and take it. I will use it to make the heel. On the left side of the front bed, leave 21 pushers in working position. The other pushers must be in resting position. Raise all pushers on the back bed of the machine, then arrange them the same way as the pushers on the front bed. You must have 21 pushers in working position on the left side of the back bed. The other pushers to the right must be in resting position. Now you can see up close. Attach equal weight to the left side of the knitting. Now knit 2 rows. The machine will knit only where the pushers are raised. On both beds, put the rightmost pusher in resting position and knit 2 rows. Put one pusher at right on both beds in resting position and knit 2 rows. Then continue the same way until only 8 pushers remain in working position on each bed. Put the rightmost pusher in resting position on both beds and knit only 1 row. Raise the rightmost pusher in working position on both beds and knit 2 rows. Now put the next pusher to the right in working position on both beds and knit 2 rows. Continue the same way until you raise all 21 pushers in working position. When you raise all pushers, take the yarn and thread it in the double-eye bodkin tool. Push the double-eye bodkin tool between the stitches and pull the yarn between the beds of the machine. Cut the yarn from the lock and wrap it around the annex lever. Thread the other end in the double-eye bodkin tool and pull it between the beds of the machine. Use the orange ruler and put all pushers on both beds in resting position. Raise 21 pushers set right on both beds of the machine. We will use them to make the second half of the heel. Take the end of the red yarn and tie it to the racking handle. Make sure the yarn is between the beds of the machine. Now knit 2 rows. Put the leftmost pusher on both beds in resting position. Now knit 2 rows. Put the next pusher to the left in resting position on both beds and knit 2 rows. Then continue the same way until only 8 pushers remain in working position on each bed. Put the leftmost pusher in resting position on both beds and knit only 1 row. Raise the leftmost pusher in working position on both beds and knit 2 rows. Now put the next pusher to the left on both beds in working position and knit 2 rows. Continue the same way until you raise all 21 pushers in working position. Now the heel is ready. Cut the yarn which you tied to the racking handle. Thread it into the double-eye bodkin tool and push it somewhere between the stitches. Now raise all 80 pushers on the front bed of the machine. They must be in working position. Put all pushers on the back bed in resting position. Set the front lock to BX, the stitch size to 4 1/4 and press the left arrow key. Set the back lock to N, the stitch size must be 4. Take the second color yarn and knit 100 rows. Clear the row counter and increase only the stitch size by a number on both sides of the lock. Now knit 4 rows using these settings. Rotate the racking handle 1.5 turn anti-clockwise to its upper position. Remove the edge springs, take the double-eye bodkin tool, start it right and transfer 21 stitches to the back bed of the machine. Pull the yarn from the lock without cutting it and wrap it around the NX lever. Take the rightmost stitch and transfer it to the needle on the left. Raise the needle all the way, take the yarn from the lock and wrap it behind the latch into the hook and pull the needle down. Take the stitch and transfer it to the needle on the left. Raise the needle, wrap the yarn from the lock and pull the needle down. I am using the same way of casting off the stitches in the video where I am knitting wrist warmers. You can click on the info card to check it out. Transfer the last stitch to the hook of the needle on the back bed so it will have 2 stitches in its hook. Now you can unwrap the yarn from the NX lever. Use the orange ruler and remove all empty needles on both beds of the machine. Set the front lock to GX and press the 0 key to disengage the arrow key. Set the back lock to GX and move it to the left side of the machine. Pull the yarn from the lock and wrap it around the NX lever. Remove the edge springs and transfer 21 stitches from the front to the back bed of the machine. Take the leftmost stitch and transfer it to the needle on the right. Raise the needle all the way, take the yarn from the lock and wrap it behind the latch into the hook and pull the needle down. Take the next stitch and transfer it to the needle on the right. Raise it all the way, wrap the yarn from the lock and pull the needle down. Repeat until you cast off all 21 stitches. Transfer the last stitch to the hook of the needle on the back bed so it will have 2 stitches in its hook. Cut the yarn tail that connects the stitches that you just cast off at the right side and these on the left side, then cut the yarn from the lock and push all tails between the beds. Remove all empty needles on both beds of the machine. Now move the lock to the right side. Rotate the racking handle clockwise to its lowest position. Place the edge springs on the last needles and make sure the latches are closed. Raise the pushers on the raw working needles on the back bed of the machine. Unwrap the white yarn from the annex lever and insert it into the slot on the right side. Clear the row counter, set the front lock to BX and the stitch size to 4. Set the back lock to BX and the stitch size to 4. Knit 2 rows and put the rightmost pusher on both beds in resting position. Knit 1 row and put the leftmost pusher on both beds in resting position. Knit 1 row and put the next pusher on both beds into resting position. You have to repeat these steps until only 15 pushers remain in working position on each bed. The lock must be on the left side of the machine. Put 1 pusher on both beds in resting position and knit 1 row. Now start raising the pushers. Raise 1 pusher to the right on both beds and knit 1 row. Then raise 1 pusher to the left and knit 1 row. Repeat these steps until all pushers are in working position. Now all pushers are in working position. Clear the row counter, we are almost ready. Put the rightmost pusher in resting position on both beds of the machine and knit one row. Put the leftmost pusher in resting position on both beds of the machine and knit one row. Put one pusher in resting position on both beds on the side of the lock and knit one row. Repeat these steps until only 14 pushers remain in working position. If you make the stocking following these instructions, I will be happy to see your result. When I'm moving the lock to the left, you can see that the last two needles are jumping a little. Galaxy 3 told me that either the yarn tension is too tight or I'm moving the lock too fast. In my case, it's the tension of the yarn. Now there are only 14 pushers in working position. Clear the row counter. Set the front lock to N and the stitch size to 5. Set the back lock to N and the stitch size to 7. Rotate the racking handle anti-clockwise to its upper position. Remove the edge springs, take the double-eye bodkin tool and transfer all the stitches to the back bed of the machine. By the way, tell me what do you want me to knit in the next video. Also, if you want to send me a pattern, you can feel free to do it at my email address or on my Facebook page. Insert the yarn into the last 4 needles, then transfer the stitches from the front bed. The yarn must come out from the rightmost needle on the back bed. Raise the empty needles on the front bed. Rotate the racking handle clockwise to its lowest position. Knit only one row, the lock must be on the left side of the machine. Pull the knob and lower the front bed. Take the yellow tool and make a zigzag latch cast off. Start from the rightmost stitch on the back bed, then take all stitches in a zigzag manner. When you take the last stitch, cut the yarn from the lock, wrap it behind the latch into the hook and pull it through. Raise the front bed and remove the knitting from the machine. This is the stocking right after you take it from the machine. Now you have to hide toe yarn tails. I will weave them in between the stitches using a tapestry needle. This is how it should look like. This is the side where all the needles were raised, and this is the side where the needles were arranged in 2-to-1 division. This will be the right side of my sock. By the way, did you know that in Bulgarian sock means juice? Fold the sock with the right side inside. When you're sewing something with stripes, make sure to align them perfectly. I will pin the sides together and then I will try to hand sew it using the invisible seam. Now I will sew it. The next part of the video is very intense and it's not suitable for machine knitters with weak hearts. I have threaded my sewing machine with the same yarn I used for knitting the sock and I decided to skip the hand sewing part. I'm sewing very close to the edge. You can use the edge of the presser foot as a guide. If you have a domestic sewing machine, you can use regular sewing thread. I threaded the machine with yarn because it's easy to unpick. I wasn't sure what the final result would be. Also, you can set the stitch length to the highest possible setting. I'm using tweezers to align both layers. Now I will thread the machine with the white yarn to finish the lower part of the sock. Don't judge me, you know that I'm not good at hand sewing and it is only for decoration. If I had to sew it by hand, it would take me until the next Christmas. This is how the seam looks on the inside. Now I will turn the sock inside out. You can see the final result. The seam is almost invisible. that's all for today, thank you for watching, see you in my next video, I hope you have a nice and warm holiday season, and thank you again Galaxy 3, you are a great help to me.